Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of
Super Stache Bros.
So, we're continuing with our weekly movie review. That's it.
So, like last week, we watched a bunch of movies this week. Not really much else to do, so we're big movie buffs. So, this week we did 5 movies that we put in the description for last week, in case anyone wanted to watch along with us. So, we're going to be reviewing the next 5 movies we watched this past week.
And hopefully you got to watch some of them this past week as well.
So, I guess just start off right off the bat. Probably one of my favorite movies of recent times, Mandy, starring Nicolas Cage. This one started out more indie, but I think it's starting to gain a lot of momentum because I'm seeing a lot of people loving this movie, like cosplay characters, stickers, memes, all that jazz. And I'm actually glad it's getting all the attention because it is a really good psychedelic is the best word to describe it. Roller coaster ride. It's kind of like I Spit on Your Grave meets Hellraiser meets a rock musical. Very violent, very beautifully shot. A lot of, I guess, just trippy effects, flashing lights, stuff like that. So it's definitely a beautiful film to watch.
It's very artsy.
It is. It's an art house film.
Even though it's very gory and kind of like Hellraiser, it's Hellraiser meets an art house film.
Pretty much. So it's beautiful, beautiful characters, really good writing, pacing. I really enjoyed this one. It was a bloody, gory, fun ride from start to finish. So, and if you're a fan of Nicolas Cage, you'll love this one because he's a total butt kicker in this one.
And Crazy Cage comes out for sure, which is my favorite Nicolas Cage is Crazy Cage. And he definitely is quite crazy in this movie. And you'll have to look up the person who actually plays Mandy. I was really surprised when I looked up the actress who done it. Do you remember her name?
Not off the top of my head, but she's beautiful.
Yeah, she is absolutely beautiful. There's effects and everything that you really don't even notice in this movie until you actually start delving into it and looking about it online and everything like that. Definitely one of my favorites of the week this week.
It's a fun little movie. Moving on to number 2. This one's a brand new one. It literally we saw it.
Oh, wait, where can you find Mandy?
Oh, yeah. So, Mandy is streaming for, I guess not technically free, on Shudder. Or you can rent it off Prime for $4. So, it's a good deal. But moving on, like I was saying, this next one is one of the newer releases. I think it literally just came out on DVD last Tuesday. Called The Lodge, starring Alicia Silverstone. So she's definitely hardly recognizable from her role. Although she's still beautiful, but it's weird to see her in this kind of film because this film is very, very, very dark, very disturbing. So it's kind of a shift in tone from Mandy, which it didn't take itself too seriously. This one's very serious, very realistic, gritty. Basically, a dad marries this new woman. He leaves her alone in their lodge during Christmas with the 2 kids to try to get them to bond, and all this weird, creepy stuff starts happening. And it was just a wild roller coaster ride from the very first scene. Because,
and I'll interject that the woman that he leaves these children with is a survivor of a suicide cult that has killed themselves.
So it has a lot. She's a survivor of a cult. So if you're into that kind of stuff, which I am, fascinated by that. So through the movie, it's kind of, is she going crazy? Or is there something actually going on, There's a lot of religious symbolism throughout the film, and I thought that was used really well, because normally it's kind of hit or miss when they involve religion with horror and all that stuff, but this one was handled very, very well. And if you're a fan of Hereditary, movies like that are very realistic, and it kind of combines, out of this kind of world, horror elements with really grounded, realistic situations, you'll love this one. Very, very dark.
I think it deals a lot too with people's mental states, like, as far as grief and how you deal with things later in life, and how we dismiss it sometimes in people and just kind of expect them to move along. And that doesn't really spoil anything. It's just you'll see along the way that it's kind of like, sometimes you can't just force someone into new ways without there being consequences. So
definitely, if you like actually scary horror films like Hereditary, if you're a fan of Hereditary, Midsommar, The Witch, definitely check this one out. It was really enjoyable, actually. Moving on to a movie that I was severely disappointed with, Body at Brighton Rock. So, very simple premise. It's a new, inexperienced park ranger. She's doing her rounds through the park, stumbles upon this dead body just laying out in the middle of nowhere. She manages to get a hold of her superiors. They tell her they can't get out there until in the morning, so she needs to stay with the body for the night and just watch it, make sure nothing's disturbed because it could be a potential crime scene. So, the first 30 minutes of this movie, I was in love with it. I loved the setup, the characters. It was filmed beautifully. I think it was one of the most beautifully filmed movies I've seen in a while.
really cool music.
Good music. It was very bright.
Camera work was really nice.
Beautiful. And I'm, both avid hikers, so anything to do with the outdoors that really encaptures that feeling was awesome. So the setup was simple, but it was one of those things where it's simple but effective. And they set it up in a way where you were thinking like, okay, so this is going to be kind of like a thriller, like this woman, it's a crime scene. They mentioned it's a potential crime scene, so the killer's going to come back, and it's kind of going to be like a cat and mouse game between the two through the woods. And so for the first 30 minutes, which is pretty much just set up, I was just thinking like, oh, this is going to get really good because they've hinted at all this stuff, and pretty soon it's going to be a fight for survival. And then nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
No, it was literally like an episode of Goosebumps. Because after 30 minutes, I just kept waiting and waiting. I was like, okay, all right. And then the ending, it just ends. And I was like, okay. Literally, nothing happens. I was like, there's so much they could have done with it. Especially, they introduced all these quirky, cool characters in the first, 20 minutes. And, setting the stage, I'm like, okay, potential victims later on, just to add to the body count. And then literally you don't see them at all for the rest of the film. And so it's okay when a movie doesn't go the way you expect it, but when it doesn't even literally do nothing, it doesn't even go any direction, it just ends.
The one scene where it's kind of like the scare while it's even beginning, you're like, dream sequence.
That's it. It relied on all the dream sequences.
It was very, you're just like, dream sequence. And so by the end, you're like, it's just another dream sequence. There's nothing going to happen in this movie. And so, still probably worth a watch just because I think it was beautifully shot. The actual environment that it's in is beautiful if you like the outdoors and everything like that. I think this movie had huge potential. Even now, days after, I was thinking of how good they could have made the story. I was like, this could have been one of my favorite new movies. It was simple, but the premise actually had a lot of ideas. I was like, so there's going to be a killer, he's going to chase her, the other park rangers are going to come out there, try to save her, they're going to get killed, all this. It was going to be a really good
cat and mouse game throughout this national park. And I was like, that's an amazing potential story, but yet so simple to execute. And it's not like it would have cost them any money. So I'm like, I don't really understand what they were going for.
And it kind of sounds like we want this movie to be like so many other movies in the past, and that it just didn't pan into what we wanted. But literally, this movie that you'll see, it has so much potential.
It didn't pan into anything.
It didn't pan into anything, and so it's kind of
there's no plot really after the first 30 minutes.
No, I mean it's like it's one of those where they're like, I have this idea for a really cool movie, but I don't know how to end it. And then when they finished up, they're like, that's good enough.
I just don't really understand what went through their minds, if they were thinking this was going to be some sort of psychological thing, which it really wasn't. I mean, it's only like an hour and 10 minutes. But they could have expanded on it longer if they'd actually put it in a direction. It literally went no direction. There was no story. It kind of literally just ended. And I was like,
and that's sad because it was well acted.
Beautifully shot.
Beautifully shot
and
again.
All the pieces were set up for it to have a good story and succeed. So I don't understand why the director or anyone involved in the film wasn't like, hey, this isn't really go anywhere. How about we just rewrite this whole third act and just have all this stuff happen? It's not going to cost any extra money, and we're golden. So I'm actually, honestly, I don't think I've ever been so disappointed in a film. Like, for them, like, the director and the writer, I was like, you guys could have had such a good, like, indie horror film that could have gotten all kinds of people talking, but now the people that are going to watch it are just going to be like, and move on, which just sucks because it was such a good premise. Mm-hmm. So, moving on from that disappointment, the next movie, this one was a very shocking surprise, called Bliss. Again, it's another... Body at Brighton Rock is streaming again on Shudder, if you have Shudder, or you can buy it off iTunes for like $2. So, if you like pretty shot films, give it a watch, but don't be expecting anything special. But anyway, moving on to Bliss. This is another indie film that really surprising. In the vein of Mandy, it was very psychedelic. And what I mean by that is kind of all these very bright, vibrant colors, flashing lights. And there's even a warning at the beginning of the film if you have epilepsy not to watch it. Because it is flashing non-stop throughout the film. It's just a wild acid trip, pretty much. I've never personally done acid, but that's what I imagine it'd be like if I did it. There's
a lot of drug use in this movie, so I think they are kind of like playing off of that.
That is the point of the movie. The Bliss is a type of some like black cocaine that the main character snorts throughout. She's an artist. She's struggling. She has artist block. She can't think of how to do her paintings. So she starts taking this drug, and it causes her to black out. And when she wakes up, more and more of her painting is finished, and it's looking really good. So she just keeps getting more and more into this drug, and it just completely spirals out of control. Again, very well acted. This one, I loved how realistic it was in its portrayal of, lower class youth, like grew up in a rough neighborhood type of thing. The way they talked, the way they spoke, their actions, it really encaptured how, they really act in those types of situations. And very, very violent. Again, extremely violent. And the last 20 minutes is just balls to the wall insanity. So it was really good.
There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes of the drug and everything like that. So if you're expecting it to just be a drug movie, it's not. It's a true horror movie when everything unfolds. So definitely not like a Requiem for a Dream. This is a horror movie, and
it's not a movie where it's like, don't do drugs, kid. The drugs play a part, but towards the end you find out this whole other layer of actual horror that adds to it. So the drugs, the driving force, but it's not a drug movie where it's like, it's see what drugs do to you kids and all this stuff. It's just used to fuel the insanity that follows.
The madness that ensues.
Mm-hmm. So it was really good. If you like violent, gory horror films, practical effects, all practical effects, so that's always a plus. Definitely check that one out.
If you have epilepsy, avoid it at all costs.
Which even the movie, it does, and like immediately after that title card, it just gets right into the flashing light. So if you see it, click off of it.
You may find that you have epilepsy and didn't know it going into this movie. So
yeah, you never know.
That's a good one.
It is good.
It's, definitely, after it was over, we kind of looked at each other and was like, damn, that was intense.
Mm-hmm. This one, again, is streaming on Shudder. And you might see me mentioning Shudder a lot, so it's a good streaming service to have if you love horror films. Mm-hmm. Or you can rent it again on iTunes or YouTube for $3. So definitely check that one out. It was really enjoyable, a roller coaster from start to finish. The last one on the list is probably one of my favorite films I've watched in a long time. It's called The Invisible Guest. It's a Spanish film, so if you don't mind subtitles, this one's really. Again, it had a very simple plot, but unlike Body at Brighton Rock, it actually uses that simplicity to the full extent. So,
this is also not a horror movie going into it. It's more of a mystery, thriller, crime.
If you like Gone Girl, Girl on the Train, those types of crime mystery dramas, you'll definitely love this one. It was amazing, had a lot of twists.
This is a movie you will tell other people about, and you'll try to get them to watch it. I've watched it with a couple of friends since we watched it, and they all are just like, wow, that's an amazing movie. Even the ones that hate subtitles, it's worth it. It's kind of like Parasite. Mm-hmm. You know, it was such a good movie that even if you didn't like subtitles, you enjoyed the movie. It didn't hinder it at all.
But so basically the plot is this wealthy billionaire. He gets accused of killing his mistress. He says he was framed, but he was locked in a hotel room with only one entrance, one exit. And so this woman comes over, his lawyer sends, I think it's called like a court prepper. They prep you for court. And a timer started at the beginning of the movie, and they have 3 hours till they're due in court. And it's her job. She has to sit down with him, and he tells her everything that's happened so she can provide him a clear-cut way of proving his innocence. And so it kind of does that flashback, flash-forward type thing where he goes back and is telling things. But as we go along, we learn he's lying about some things happen this way. And so it's that type of movie where we actually see it happening, but then we find out that's not the truth. And so then it goes back again later and plays it back the actual way. So it's really, the entire time you're guessing like, well, maybe this happened, well, maybe that happened, this is what happened that led to this and that. And the ending was one of the best endings I've ever seen. Did not see it coming.
It has an epic ending.
A very good twist. And a lot of movies, they kind of suffer from that, where they either set it up poorly or you can tell it's just tacked on to try to shock the audience. This one was very well laid out subtly throughout the whole film.
And I hate saying this movie has a twist, because the whole time now you're probably going to watch this movie like trying to figure out the twist of this movie.
But I doubt you will.
Yeah, but I won't even mention a twist in a movie. But since it's out of the bag now, we might as well say it does have a very cool, way beyond M. Night Shyamalan twist, I believe. So
actually, very well done twist. So if you like those type of crime thrillers, I definitely recommend this one. It was an enjoyable ride. And this one is available for free on Netflix. Technically not free, but if you have Netflix, which I'm assuming everyone does, it's on there. Definitely give it a watch. So I think that's the list. 4 out of 5 is not bad. Really only one dud.
And it's still worth a watch. I'm not going to go hating on Body at Brighton Rock. I I don't know if this is their first movie that they've done.
It's not. I did research. It's not their first movie.
Well,
so they had opportunities. So I will hate on it. Watch it if you like pretty things, but I'm so disappointed.
Well, thanks again for tuning in. We're going to have another list of movies that we're going to try to watch for next week down in the description of the video. So if you want to kind of keep up with us and watch the movies and chime in on the comments, we would love that.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought of the movies, and then we'll see you back next week with the new list.
See ya.
See ya.